Hello and welcome to my channel, Becoming Bev. This is part 2 of my visit to Poland. We made the move from Warsaw to Krakow, Poland, which is southern Poland. We had a very fascinating stop on the way here that I'd like to share with you all. You know, it's interesting. So years ago, Lewis knew this woman named Amber Poole from Houston. And as it turns out, Amber married a Polish man, and she's living here in Poland, so they decided, you know, since we're here, we should stop in and see Amber. And I gotta tell you, it was one of the most fascinating things that I've done on this trip. Amber and her husband, Paul, live in a pretty big house that's been in their family for centuries. And they were using the house as like a retreat center, holding meditation retreats and spiritual retreats and stuff like that. And then the Ukrainian war came. Buses of people started showing up needing a place to stay. The Ukrainian refugees are mostly all women and children, and if they're letting men out of the Ukraine, it's because they have an illness or something going, they're elderly, something like that. So we got to have lunch with Amber and Paul and some of these Ukrainian refugees and share their stories, and I gotta say it was quite moving. Like in the US, we know there's a Ukrainian war, but it's not personal. You know, maybe we're following it because we're interested in that, but we don't really understand the stories. So Amber has started doing some writing. She's writing something she calls the War Diaries. And it's basically documenting her journey, her feelings, some of the stories of the people that are staying there, and sharing, you know, from a firsthand experience. One of the things that was said while we were there having lunch with them was, I feel if my ancestors were looking down, they'd be very proud of what we're doing. And I agree with that statement 100%. They would be very proud of what they're doing. Also, a lot of the people that they have staying, you know, there, they have 40 people right now have disabilities, and a couple of the children have Down syndrome and things like that. So they're operating this place 100% on donations. So I'll leave information, you know, in this video. If you're moved and you feel like you want to support what they're doing, you know, absolutely leave them a donation, and I'll leave the link in this video description. But what I want to do now is, Amber has been writing something she calls the War Diaries. And I just want to take a few minutes and just read a couple of pages from her War Diaries. And I'll also include a link in the video description if you're interested in reading. You know, right now it's 127 pages of her experiences, but I just want to read you guys a couple of pages. Okay, this entry is from Tuesday, March 8th of 2022. My ex-husband called this morning to see if he could help by sending money and spreading the word in San Diego. He asked, tell me about a typical day. What an interesting turn of phrase, as there is no typical day. Getting coffee and starting a fire in the downstairs fireplace is where typical ends. But one does look forward to the coffee, the warmth of the fire, dare I say. We count on it in a world where counting on anything is a precarious business. 28 refugees in your house quickly converts a person's thinking from the theoretical to the actual. No longer do I speak in the abstract. Every night as I climb in bed, I'm struck by the visceral and practical in each minute of my day. I never knew one could contain so many emotions and complexes in one body, and then to multiply that by 28 is what the house and the land must support. And then remembering the Nazis that drove up the driveway in 1940 to take Sophia and Christoph to Ravensbrück and, I can't pronounce these, Medanjek, respectively, in the atmosphere at Sechau. Sechau is what they call their house. While there is no actual threat to Poland, the Poles and the Ukrainians share the same memories of an ancestral past which is still tangible, real, not imagined. We have 6 families, including 1 pregnant woman expecting her first child, 4 other children, and 2 teenagers. We have a 6-year-old master chess player who is a Ukrainian national treasure. She took subtle delight, though measured in her display of confidence, as she has impeccable manners and clearly didn't want to boast, to beating the socks off Paul. She takes the game of chess quite seriously and yet had a slightly turned up smile during the game, which set the tone from the first move who the winner would be. Poor Paul was massacred. He turned the king on his side. He fell on his sword. Still, she insisted on shaking hands at the finish. She carries her baby dolls around and makes direct eye contact with you. She doesn't run from anything. She plays the recorder like Zbigniew Prusner. The women rake leaves, cook, and clean with a formidable commitment. There is no hesitation. They make soup like a 15th century alchemist. I don't know why there are some women who rarely come out of their rooms, the older ones. I don't know whose husband is alive and whose husband is dead. I don't know that most have lost their homes, and in some cases, their pets that they had to leave behind. And I don't know about their friends. I do know that their lives are changed forever. Home is no more. Now they have to cling to each other and rely on the goodness of strangers. They must eventually consider who will be the best host country, who will take them, what language will be easiest to learn, who will have to work. They have the daunting task of rebuilding their lives and perhaps with an incomplete family. Daria is expecting her first child, a little girl. Daddy is moving around the Ukraine. Will she start off life with him, or will she grow up with only stories told about him? For the past near 20 years, I have told the story of Rose and Henry Kynowitz and how they arrived in Scotland with only the clothes on their backs without a penny to their name. Every morning, I look into the eyes of this memory, the memory of my mother-in-law, the memory of all who made it out of Poland in 1945 alive. There are half laughs, moist eyes, deep sighs, and distant looks. Every morning there is something to touch, something real, something tangible, some practicality that needs addressing, a pair of shoes, a needle and thread, a pair of slippers, a bottle brush, cough drops. Do I pray? Of course I pray. Do I know there are angels around us? Of course I do, because there are. I just no longer think about the women as I did the women from Yemen or Syria, whom I thought about with great concern, but only thought about, only imagined and theorized about. Today I have coffee with these women, the Ukrainian women, and we just sit together. Very few words are exchanged, but the care and the love at the table, the power in it is enough to give birth to a new star. The women and children all over the world who have been forced to flee their homes, their lives, because of the tyranny of evil sits in spirit with us. I will be writing this diary during the week when time permits. I think it's important. Amber. And then I want to read you the entry from day 19, or Diaries, March 14th, 2022. Carl Jung said that we all walk in shoes too small. I don't think this applies to Alicia. However, she was up early with her hair beautifully braided. Her outfit could have easily been an advertisement for Gap Kids. Her teddy bear backpack hung evenly over each shoulder. She was ready to go to school. Her mother, a friend, me, and the dogs accompanied her as she marched up the steps, shoulders squared, into the school office where she waited to be registered. Once the formalities were complete, she marched up another set of stairs into the classroom. I have mentioned Alicia before. She is our chess champion. She's the one that never averts your stare. I believe she enjoys looking at people. I suspect she studies us. This precious child was lovingly carried through a war zone by an attentive family who treasures her. This is her center point. This is the place that informs her, the place from where she situates herself in the world. Paul drove the teenagers into town where the headmistress of the local high school welcomed them. They returned today full of excitement and hope. They will be studying Polish, astronomy, history of the Ukraine, general history, Poles like history, math, overall preparatory classes for the mature, much like the exams American students take before entering university. There are 2 ballet dancers. One is a budding young filmmaker. Ukrainians are keen on school. Not even war stops them in their path to an education. I can honestly say I've never seen anything like it. It's natural to them. It has an easiness about it, and you don't feel a tremendous pressure applied from anyone. They just genuinely like school. They like to learn. Henry and Yulia are here from London. Henry is the son of Paul's first cousin, Magdalena. His wife, Yulia, is Ukrainian. They have been with us for a week on a mission to evacuate 4 of the family members, Yulia's grandmother, her auntie, and 2 cousins. Each of the 4 have a chilling story. Each escaped the shelling in Kyiv. First, the cousins made their way to the border, walking 20 kilometers with what they could carry, wading through water near waist deep, observing the dead on the side of the road. In another entry, I will tell you about the transportation company that nearly absconded with their money, what little they have, and possibly might have put them in danger, but later. The world is asked of them to witness too much. Thankfully, Henry and Yulia were waiting at the border and brought them to safety. It looked like they would be leaving mother and grandmother behind for an unknown period of time, but when the block of flats was destroyed, the one just next door to them, the neighbor suggested they get out. The same 20 kilometers, he pushed the wheelchair over endless stretches of rubble with Yulia's 87-year-old grandmother holding tight. Before they made this journey, they would hide in the basement of the building when the nighttime bombing began. One night, her cousin drew a picture of what he would consider the perfect day, a football pitch, the sun shining, his mates all playing what Americans call soccer. His mother looked down at the paper and she said to herself, "We may die here tonight. You might never play football again." But for his family, there is a different ending. They did not die. Mom sat at the table with Yulia last night and expressed her thoughts that now she considered anything possible. All is manageable now that they are safe. Henry and Yulia are not your typical pair. They have pulled 4 family members from the jaws of death. They have been the family's ambassadors to peace and safety. No stone has been left unturned. They will continue to work from London, first sorting out paperwork for the cousins to join them, and then in time, mother and grandmother, who will stay with us at Sechau until then. The doctor will make a house call tomorrow to make sure all are well. Did I tell you that the cousins were adopted by Yulia's auntie? They had lost their parents to war in 2014 and Donist. I will drive Maria to the eye doctor for an examination and new glasses tomorrow. Today I took her grandfather, who literally came with the clothes on his back, for a new pair of jeans, a jacket, and a pair of tennis shoes. He was most pleased. In fact, we had an impromptu fashion show. He said he felt young again. We have 2 blind people and 3 of their family members arriving tomorrow. They will stay at Dwar. We bought Marina's tickets today. She leaves tomorrow. I will miss her, but insisted she contact me if anything untoward were to happen. She promised. I would like to talk about enchantment and mythology, perhaps tomorrow, and then I hope to be feeling better. I'm warding off a cold. One thought I can pass along today is these Ukrainians have also impacted my life forever. Fear is not a word I will use recklessly ever again. I will think long and hard before I dare to resort to such extravagance. Whew. So anyway, I just wanted to share someone that I met's firsthand experience of what's going on. And if you're interested, again, I'll put the link in the video description to read, everything that she's written. If you feel moved, again, send donations. So Stacy, what would you say your biggest takeaway about our time with Amber and Paul and the Ukrainian refugees that they're housing and just being in the home?
They're taking them to the doctors, the dentist. They're getting them psychological help for their, trauma and PTSD. They're helping them with their papers. Also, they're providing education, Polish. They're teaching them Polish and English.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also coming up with ways to for them to make things or get jobs and make their own money.
Right. They had bought some sewing machines and crafting supplies, thinking, maybe the women could make some things and sell them just, to help them earn more money.
One of the things that, after reading Amber's war diaries, like, I was amazed at, like, right now the house is full. They have 40 people there. And there have been a lot of people come and go.
Right.
Like, they've helped a lot of people just give them a temporary place to stay and transition until they get their visas or figure out what country they can go to. Like, they can't go home.
Yeah, or even get them on. This may be a stop on the way to some relatives.
Exactly. One of the things that I thought of when I was talking to Amber is how sacred, you know, what they're doing is, and how much history that house has. Their house was built in the 1790s, and that house has been through World War II, and you know, they lost the house to the Nazis for years and didn't get it back in the family until like 1990, and didn't do the remodel on it until 2010. It's so wild to me that Europe is in another war.
Yeah.
Like, girl, there's nothing about me that understands this or gets it. I feel like our time at Sechao with Amber and Paul was really special and one of the most thought-provoking parts of this trip for sure.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me come along.
Thank you for this experience and being able to share it with your community here.
Yeah.